Today we're doing something different. We always talk about the Empire's fleets, the Sith, or the intense wars. But what about the regular people? The people with no power? What was it really like to live as a normal citizen of the Galactic Empire? Was it as dark and hopeless as it looks in the movies? Or did some people genuinely see it as an improvement over the Old Republic? In the core worlds like Coruscant, the Empire felt less like an iron fist and more like a perfectly balanced machine. On the surface, life looked good. The Clone Wars had ended, so people were tired of chaos. The Empire promised stability, security, and a return to normal life. Crime dropped, trade routes became safer thanks to Imperial patrols, and massive construction projects created jobs. Things like Star Destroyers, the Death Star, new stations and shipyards needed people to build them. Corporations thrived, especially those willing to cooperate. Kuat drive yards and CNR fleet systems grew even bigger, making fortunes by supplying the Imperial Navy. If you were human, middle or upper class, and willing to keep quiet, your life might have actually improved. Schools had updated facilities, trains and skylines ran on time, and cities gleamed with fresh Imperial banners. But under all this was silent fear. You couldn't publicly criticize the Emperor or the military, and you'd see neighbors quietly vanish after making the wrong joke. HoloNet news was strictly controlled. It all praised the Emperor and condemned terrorists like the rebels. Yet, the most chilling part? Many citizens didn't feel oppressed. The propaganda was so constant and subtle that it felt like truth. So imagine, walking home from work under the city lights, with clean streets and order everywhere, but passing stormtroopers on every corner, and knowing deep down, if you step out of line, you'll disappear, and no one will speak your name again. This was the daily life for millions at the heart of the Empire. Further out in mid-rim worlds like Naboo, the Empire still promised order, but cracks were easier to see. Here, Imperial investment often meant new factories, military bases, and shipyards that created jobs in modernized cities. Locals could find steady work building starfighters or processing raw materials shipped from the Outer Rim. And for young people, the Empire painted a clear path to success. Join the Imperial Academy, wear the uniform, and serve the galaxy. It wasn't all forced. Many genuinely felt pride in it. The Empire offered scholarships and training for the best and the brightest. But life wasn't equal. If you were human and loyal, doors opened. If you were alien or spoke against the Emperor, doors quietly closed. Right in front of your face, the doors would go and then close. No more door for you. Local governors had sweeping power. Some ruled fairly, others turned into mini dictators, taking bribes, taking advantage of businesses, or punishing entire communities to keep control. And beneath it all was propaganda. Daily HoloNet broadcasts praising Imperial victories, blaming unrest on traitors and terrorists, and teaching children that the Jedi betrayed the Republic. This propaganda worked, at least on the surface. People didn't talk openly about the rebellion, but rumors spread in quiet moments. Stories about rebel raids, Imperial brutality, and the truth of what happened to the Jedi. So in the mid-rim, life felt balanced between comfort and fear. You had more opportunity than the Outer Rim, but always felt the invisible leash tightening. And if you dared question why things felt wrong, you'd quickly learn to keep those questions to yourself after you disappear and become unalived. I don't know why I said unalive. This isn't a TikTok video. The Outer Rim was a completely different galaxy entirely. Here, the Empire looked less like a government and more like an occupying army. Stormtrooper patrols were common, not to keep streets safe, but to keep citizens under control. Entire towns and villages were burned to the ground for suspected rebel sympathy. Resources were stripped away, ore, food, and rare minerals were shipped to the core, leaving local populations in poverty. Places like Lothal saw beautiful plains replaced with military factories and pollution. Non-human species suffered the most. Many Outer Rim planets had large alien populations who were openly discriminated against, enslaved, or displaced. Some communities lived in constant fear of Imperial raids. The smallest sign of defiance, like graffiti supporting the rebellion, could bring harsh punishment. But it wasn't just despair. Rebellions grew strongest here. Local smugglers, farmers, and ex-clone veterans quickly built networks to resist. They hid weapons, gathered intel, and helped people escape forced labor camps. For many, daily life meant survival, hunting for food, avoiding patrols, and waiting for a moment to strike back. It was brutal, unfair, and often hopeless. But in the Outer Rim, the rebellion had roots that stormtrooper boots couldn't crush. Across the whole empire, one thing unified citizens: constant propaganda. Every city, town, and even remote mining colony had Imperial broadcasts. Posters showed strong stormtroopers defending smiling families. HoloNet News told only one story: the Empire brought peace, the Jedi were traitors, and the rebellion was nothing but murders and thieves. Children in school learned a new history: the Jedi caused the Clone Wars, and Palpatine saved the galaxy. Aliens were often portrayed as lazy, criminal, or dangerous. This wasn't always forced, but citizens truly believed it, especially if life felt safer under Imperial rule. The Empire didn't need everyone to love it, just enough to accept it, or at least fear questioning it. For young people, joining the military seemed heroic. Imperial recruiters promised glory, adventure, and honor. And by the time recruits realized the truth, that they were enforcing a brutal regime, many were already too deep to leave. Propaganda didn't just change minds. It shaped entire generations to see the Empire not as oppressors, but as the natural, rightful rulers of the galaxy. One of the darkest truths about the Empire was that it was openly racist. Palpatine's regime pushed a human-first policy that kept non-humans out of the military, high government positions, and important trade guilds. Entire alien species were enslaved. Wookiees were sent to build the Death Star, Twi'leks forced into labor, or entertainment, which, I mean, can you really blame them? Look at that. Just kidding. That was messed up. That's, yeah, I know. On some planets, alien neighborhoods were walled off. Their businesses were destroyed, and their cultures were suppressed. This wasn't hidden. Citizens saw it daily. Public humiliations, arrests, and Imperial officers openly mocking or abusing non-humans. Yet, non-human communities found ways to resist. Secret gatherings kept their cultures alive. Smugglers risked everything to move alien families to safer worlds. And many non-humans filled the ranks of the Rebel Alliance, fighting not just for freedom, but for the right to exist. For non-humans, the Empire wasn't just harsh. It was a daily nightmare of systemic hatred. When the second Death Star exploded and the Emperor died, millions celebrated. Statues fell, prisoners were freed, and whole planets declared independence overnight. But the end of the Empire didn't bring instant peace. Many local governors, warlords, and Moffs refused to surrender, turning parts of the galaxy into war zones. Some citizens struggled to believe the truth, that the Empire had lied, enslaved, and murdered on a massive scale. Propaganda doesn't just disappear overnight. Rebuilding meant facing painful questions. Why did so many stay silent? Why did some help the Empire willingly? Yet hope grew. Worlds that had known only oppression finally dared to dream of democracy again, and families who had hidden their belief for years could now speak freely. The scars of the Empire never fully vanished, but in the end, it proved a simple truth. No matter how strong fear is, hope always finds a way. So what was it really like to be a citizen living under the Empire? Well, the majority of it really just depended on where you lived and what species you were. If you were a human, life was a lot easier no matter where you were than if you were, an alien species or something like that. But the farther in you were to the core worlds, the easier life was for you if you were a human. But if you were alien species, then you were just you were cooked, bro. But thank you guys so much for watching. Remember to like and subscribe. And yeah, that wraps it up for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. And as always, may the Force be with you.